Thanos was never just a monster chasing power. He was someone running out of time, someone who already knew how the story could end and was terrified of reaching that final page. When I look back at the Infinity Saga now, I don't see a tale about heroes versus a villain anymore. I see a countdown. A slow, deliberate race against something far worse than the Mad Titan himself. And the scariest part is that Thanos might have been the only one who understood what was coming. The first moment that made me question everything wasn't a battle or a snap. It was a line. A quiet, heavy line that lands like a confession if you listen closely. When Thanos says, "I know what it's like to lose, to feel so desperately that you're right yet to fail," it doesn't sound like a threat. It sounds personal, almost intimate, like he's speaking from experience rather than imagination. Villains who believe they are unstoppable don't talk like that. Survivors do. People who have already been broken once and learned something terrifying from it. That's when I started rewatching Infinity War with a different lens. Thanos isn't reckless. He doesn't rush headfirst into fights unless he has to. He lets his enemies exhaust themselves. He trades pieces on the board when it benefits the endgame. He sacrifices Gamora not out of cruelty, but because he understands the cost of incomplete victory. This is not the mindset of a brute force tyrant. This is the mindset of a chess player who has already lost a match and refuses to repeat the same mistake. Then there's the phrase that keeps echoing through his character arc, cursed with knowledge. The MCU never fully explains what that knowledge is. We assume it's about Titan's collapse or overpopulation, but that explanation never sat right with me. Knowledge becomes a curse only when it shows you something you can't unlearn. Something that makes every other choice feel pointless or too small. Thanos doesn't sound haunted by statistics. He sounds haunted by inevitability, by the awareness that no matter how many battles you win, something else is always waiting. That idea opens the door to a far more unsettling possibility. If Thanos truly studied the universe, then he didn't just learn about planets and populations. He learned about minds, about individuals whose intelligence made them more dangerous than entire armies. Thanos would never ignore a thinker who could rival him. And somewhere in the shadows of Earth's history, there exists a name that represents everything Thanos fears. A man who doesn't seek balance but control, and who believes destiny itself can be rewritten. There's a tiny moment in Age of Ultron that most viewers forget. While Ultron scans global data, mapping threats and power centers, the screen briefly highlights an unnamed Eastern European region. No explanation, no dialogue. Just a visual acknowledgement that something there matters. Comic fans immediately felt the implication, because that region lines up perfectly with Latveria. A country that doesn't dominate headlines, doesn't lead alliances, and doesn't rely on brute military power. Its true weapon is its ruler. If Ultron's fragmented, newborn intelligence could detect Latveria as significant, then Thanos absolutely knew about it long before. Thanos doesn't underestimate anomalies. He studies them, files them away, prepares for them. Latveria is dangerous not because of its size, but because of Dr. Victor Von Doom. A man who merges science and sorcery so seamlessly that even gods fail to categorize him properly. Doom doesn't conquer worlds through chaos. He builds systems. He waits. He plans for centuries. This is where Thanos' line about loss gains real weight. In Marvel Comics, Thanos and Dr. Doom share a brutal history. In the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, Thanos achieves ultimate power. He becomes a god in every sense of the word. And yet Doom outthinks him, not by overpowering him, but by understanding him. Doom exploits Thanos' arrogance, his emotional blind spots, and steals omnipotence itself. That moment permanently reshapes Thanos' understanding of the universe. Because Doom proves something terrifying: intelligence can surpass godhood. Destiny is not fixed. It can be rewritten by someone smart enough to bend the rules. Thanos never forgets that lesson. In the MCU, we see a version of Thanos who is restrained, almost disciplined. He doesn't gloat. He doesn't overplay his hand. He respects intelligence, even in his enemies. That respect isn't kindness. It's caution. It's the behavior of someone who knows exactly what happens when you underestimate a mind like Doom's. Endgame quietly reinforces this fear without ever naming it. When Thanos decides that having the universe isn't enough and declares his intention to destroy reality entirely, that's not madness. That's escalation. It's the realization that as long as the current universe exists, certain individuals will always rise again. Certain threats will always survive. If you can't remove them directly, you remove the stage itself. You reset the board so completely that even the smartest players are erased. This changes how I see Thanos' so-called victory in Infinity War. He doesn't retire because he's satisfied. He retires because he believes he's delayed the inevitable. He's bought time. Time for dangerous intellects to lose momentum. Time for civilizations to forget how to challenge the cosmic order. But time is the one thing Thanos can never fully control. And somewhere beyond the Avengers' understanding, the universe is already correcting itself, preparing its next great mind. There's another layer that makes this even darker. If Thanos knew about Doom, then his knowledge wouldn't stop there. A strategist like Thanos studies patterns, not individuals. And in the Marvel universe, there's a clear pattern connecting population, energy, and cosmic attention. The more life a universe holds, the louder it becomes. Certain cosmic entities are drawn to abundance like predators to prey. Thanos never says who he's protecting the universe from, only what he's willing to do to protect it. That's where the snap starts to feel less like genocide and more like concealment. What if cutting life in half wasn't meant to solve overpopulation, but to lower the universe's profile? To make it less appetizing to forces that consume thriving worlds? Thanos' silence about the true threat might be intentional. Because once you name it, panic spreads. And panic accelerates destiny rather than slowing it down. When the Avengers reverse the snap, they believe they're restoring balance. But from Thanos' perspective, they might be reigniting a beacon across the cosmos. Population returns. Growth explodes. Energy surges. Whatever Thanos feared is now awake again. And the tragedy is that the Avengers never stopped to ask why the smartest being they ever faced was so desperate to slow everything down. At this point, we're only scratching the surface of Thanos' true plan. We haven't reached the core of his fear yet. We haven't named the full scope of what he was trying to delay or the consequences of undoing his work. But the clues are already there, buried in dialogue, background details, and comic history. And once you see them, it becomes impossible to ignore the possibility that Thanos wasn't trying to rule the universe at all. He was trying to keep it alive just a little longer. When I step back and look at Thanos' journey chronologically, what stands out most is how early his awareness begins. Long before Earth becomes a priority, Thanos is already mapping outcomes. He's not reacting to chaos, he's anticipating it. That suggests exposure to something that forced him to think beyond conquest. Conquerors believe in force. Survivors believe in preparation. And Thanos behaves like someone who has seen power fail spectacularly in the face of something smarter, colder, and infinitely patient. Even his relationship with the Infinity Stones feels different once you adopt this perspective. Thanos doesn't worship them. He doesn't treat them as divine artifacts. He treats them like tools, necessary temporary instruments designed to solve a very specific problem. That's an important distinction. Someone obsessed with domination would cling to that power forever. Thanos discards it the moment his objective is complete, almost as if he knows that infinite power only invites infinite challengers. I also find it telling how Thanos interacts with characters like Tony Stark and Doctor Strange. He doesn't mock their intelligence. He acknowledges it. He respects it. In Tony, he sees a reflection of himself, a man burdened by foresight and responsibility. In Strange, he sees someone willing to sacrifice futures to preserve a single outcome. Thanos doesn't hate these men. He understands them. And understanding is far more dangerous than hatred. That mutual recognition hints at something deeper. Thanos isn't just measuring strength, he's measuring potential. He's identifying who could become a threat given enough time, resources, and motivation. And that reinforces the idea that his war isn't against heroes, but against trajectories. Against the natural rise of minds that could eventually undo everything he's trying to protect. The tragedy is that the Avengers never see this side of him. To them, Thanos is the end of the problem. Defeat him and the universe is safe. But Thanos never frames himself that way. He frames himself as a necessary evil, a temporary solution to a permanent issue. That kind of thinking doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from fear, sharpened by experience. And that's where part one of this theory leaves us, standing at the edge of something much bigger than Thanos himself. Because if he truly was acting as a shield rather than a sword, then defeating him wasn't a victory. It was the removal of a barrier. And whatever that barrier was holding back has now been given exactly what it needs to move forward. There's a chilling consistency in how Thanos speaks about inevitability. He doesn't say if, he says when resources run out, when populations collapse, when resistance fails. That certainty isn't faith, it's data. It's the voice of someone who has seen multiple timelines converge toward the same disaster. And that raises an uncomfortable question. How many futures did Thanos study before deciding the snap was the least catastrophic option? The MCU never gives us access to Thanos' full library of knowledge, but it gives us enough hints to understand its weight. He knows Earth far too well for someone who has never visited it before Infinity War. He knows its champions. He knows its potential. Earth isn't special because of its heroes, it's special because of what it produces over time. Minds, innovators, sorcerers, rulers. The kind of individuals who can reshape cosmic hierarchies. That's why Thanos' patience with Earth feels almost reverent. He doesn't annihilate it when he could. He doesn't enslave it. He allows it to exist, to grow, to evolve, until the moment he believes intervention is unavoidable. That restraint suggests respect but also caution. Earth is a variable he doesn't fully control, and variables are dangerous to strategists. When Thanos finally acts, he does so with finality. One snap, one decision, no adjustments, no revisions. He commits fully, because partial measures only delay outcomes without preventing them. That decisiveness isn't cruelty. It's desperation masked as conviction. And the most haunting realization is that Thanos never celebrates. Even at the height of his success, sitting alone on a quiet farm, there's no joy in his victory. There's relief. Relief that the clock has been slowed. Relief that the universe has been given a brief moment of silence before the next storm. That silence, however, was never meant to last. What makes this interpretation so unsettling is how well it aligns with Thanos' moral framework. He doesn't see himself as a savior, but he also doesn't see himself as a villain. He sees himself as a constant. A fixed point, willing to bear the hatred of the universe if it means postponing something worse. That kind of self-image doesn't come from ego. It comes from burden. Even his willingness to die reinforces this. Thanos doesn't build an empire. He doesn't leave successors. He doesn't care about legacy. He expects to be removed once his role is complete. That's not the mindset of a conqueror. That's the mindset of a stopgap. And when the Avengers kill him at the beginning of Endgame, notice what doesn't happen. There's no panic. No attempt to escape. No revelation of a hidden contingency plan. Thanos accepts death calmly because in his mind his part is already played. The universe now belongs to its natural course again. But natural course doesn't mean safe. It means unpredictable. That's the uncomfortable truth buried beneath the Infinity Saga. Thanos wasn't trying to win forever. He was trying to delay a future he knew he couldn't stop permanently. And by removing him, the Avengers may have accelerated the very outcome he feared. Which brings us to the edge of a much larger conversation about who or what that future actually belongs to. At this stage, all we have are implications and echoes. Lines that feel heavier on rewatch. Decisions that seem excessive until you question the alternative. Thanos is a character built on implication rather than exposition. And that's why this theory matters. It reframes his actions without excusing them. It doesn't make him right, but it suggests he might have been informed. And if Thanos was informed, then the universe the Avengers restored isn't the same one they saved. It's louder, brighter, more crowded, more tempting. The snap didn't erase the danger. It muted it. And undoing that silence comes with consequences that no one in the MCU has fully faced yet. We're standing at the point where Thanos' shadow finally ends, and something else begins to stretch across the timeline. Something tied to intellect, ambition, and the refusal to accept fate. The same qualities Thanos learned to fear long before he ever set foot on Earth. That's where this story is really heading. Because once you start asking what Thanos knew, you're forced to ask what he didn't tell us. And that silence is deliberate. Whatever he was trying to hold back wasn't something you fight with fists or armies. It was something that waits, learns, and adapts. Something that thrives when the universe believes it's finally safe. And that realization changes everything. For now, all we can do is trace the breadcrumbs Thanos left behind and ask why a being powerful enough to conquer galaxies chose fear over domination. The answer doesn't lie in the snap itself, but in what he believed would happen after it. What comes next isn't about strength or survival, but about who controls the future once the universe stops listening to its warnings, and whether anyone will recognize the danger before it's too late, when there's nothing left to undo. That is the silence Thanos feared more than death itself. And it's only just beginning to matter, for everyone still watching, in this universe. Everything we thought we understood is about to be challenged in ways the Avengers never anticipated. And that changes everything. Soon. That silence Thanos feared becomes louder the moment the snap is undone. And this is where the story pivots from tragedy into inevitability. Because when Hulk brings everyone back, the Avengers celebrate a victory without realizing they've restored more than lives. They've restored momentum, growth, expansion, the very conditions Thanos believed would eventually doom the universe. I think this is the moment where Thanos truly loses, not on the battlefield, but philosophically. His sacrifice, his plan, his burden, all rendered meaningless by heroes who never understood the threat he was measuring himself against. From here, the dominoes start falling fast. The reversal of the snap doesn't just fix what was broken. It destabilizes reality itself. Time travel fractures causality. Multiple timelines branch off. The multiverse cracks open, and suddenly, beings who were once theoretical become unavoidable. This is where Thanos' fear evolves from implication into consequence. Because once the multiverse is open, the universe is no longer just loud. It's broadcasting across dimensions. And that kind of signal attracts entities that don't operate on moral scales or emotional logic. One of the most dangerous outcomes of undoing the snap is that it proves fate can be rewritten. The Avengers break the rules of time and get away with it. That single act changes the hierarchy of the cosmos. It tells every genius, every tyrant, every god-level intellect that reality is negotiable. And there is no one more obsessed with rewriting destiny than Dr. Doom. This is where Thanos' nightmare truly begins to make sense. Dr. Doom doesn't react to chaos the way other villains do. He studies it. He uses it. In comic history, Doom thrives in moments of cosmic instability. The multiverse fracturing isn't a threat to him, it's an opportunity. It creates gaps between laws, loopholes in reality itself. Thanos understood that. He knew that once the universe started bending its own rules, minds like Doom's would find a way to exploit that weakness. Power doesn't scare Doom. Disorder does not intimidate him. It invites him. This reframes why Thanos never sought to rule. Rulers attract challengers. Symbols invite rebellion. Doom doesn't rebel against kings, he replaces them. Thanos knew that if someone like Doom ever gained access to godlike power within a fractured reality, the universe wouldn't just suffer. It would be redesigned, ordered, controlled. Every living being reduced to a variable in someone else's equation. That's not balance. That's eternal subjugation. And here's the terrifying part. Doom would believe he's right, just like Thanos did. But unlike Thanos, Doom doesn't accept limits. He doesn't stop once his goal is achieved. In Secret Wars, when Doom becomes God Emperor, he doesn't retire to a farm. He rules reality with absolute authority. Thanos becomes irrelevant in that scenario, stripped of power and reduced to a pawn. That humiliation stays with Thanos across comic history, and I believe echoes of that memory shape his MCU counterpart. So when Thanos says he's cursed with knowledge, I think that curse is knowing that power alone isn't enough. Knowing that no matter how strong you become, there is always someone smarter, more patient, more obsessive. Someone who doesn't just want to win, but wants to define what winning means. Thanos understands that destiny doesn't belong to the strongest. It belongs to the one who controls the rules. This is where the Galactus layer deepens the theory even further. Galactus isn't evil. He's cosmic necessity. He consumes worlds rich with life energy. And what makes a universe rich? Growth without restraint. Innovation without consequence. Civilizations that expand endlessly. By halving the population, Thanos may have been trying to starve the universe just enough to avoid cosmic predators like Galactus. Not forever, just long enough to delay their attention. This makes Thanos' obsession with inevitability feel painfully earned. He's not a nihilist. He's a realist who has seen too many outcomes converge on the same endpoint. Doom rising. Galactus feeding. Reality reshaped by minds and forces that don't value freedom. Thanos chose the option that preserved choice, even if it cost lives. Because half a universe with free will was, to him, better than a full universe enslaved or consumed. The Avengers, in contrast, choose hope over foresight. They believe saving everyone is always the right answer. And morally, they're not wrong. But morality doesn't stop cosmic entities. Compassion doesn't deter conquerors of reality. By restoring everything without addressing the underlying threat, they reset the board without changing the rules. And Doom, Galactus, Kang all thrive under those rules. Kang's emergence is another consequence Thanos likely anticipated. Time manipulation attracts time-based entities. Once you prove timelines can be altered, you invite beings who exist outside linear causality. Kang isn't a fluke. He's a response. The universe correcting itself by introducing a regulator. Someone who doesn't care about individual lives, only about maintaining a version of reality that benefits him. Thanos would see Kang not as an anomaly, but as confirmation. This paints the Infinity Saga as a tragedy of misunderstanding. The heroes fight symptoms. Thanos fights causes. Neither side fully communicates, and the universe pays the price. Thanos never explains his deeper fears because he knows no one would accept them. How do you justify mass death by pointing to threats no one has seen yet? How do you convince heroes to sacrifice billions today to save trillions tomorrow? And that's why Thanos chooses silence. He lets the universe hate him. He carries the sin alone, because if he's wrong, he dies a monster. And if he's right, the universe survives long enough for someone else to find a better answer. That's not villainy. That's martyrdom twisted by desperation. The cruel irony is that Thanos might have underestimated one thing: human defiance. The Avengers don't accept inevitability. They fight it, break it, rewrite it. And in doing so, they prove Doom's philosophy correct. Destiny can be rewritten. The universe can be controlled. Reality can be reshaped by will and intellect. That lesson doesn't disappear. It spreads. Now imagine Doom watching all of this unfold. A universe where gods fall, timelines fracture, and heroes manipulate reality itself. Doom wouldn't see chaos. He'd see validation. Proof that the universe needs a ruler smart enough to impose order. And unlike Thanos, Doom wouldn't hesitate to take that role permanently. This is why Doom is Thanos' ultimate nightmare. Not because Doom is stronger, but because Doom would succeed where Thanos failed. He wouldn't stop. He wouldn't retire. He wouldn't accept limits. Thanos seeks balance through destruction. Doom seeks perfection through control. Thanos believes in destiny. Doom rewrites it. Thanos uses power. Doom commands it. And deep down, Thanos knows that if Doom ever reaches his full potential, the universe loses something far more precious than lives. It loses freedom, choice, chaos. The things that make existence worth preserving in the first place. So was Thanos doing the right thing? Morally, no. Strategically, maybe. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a savior. He was a warning. A being shaped by loss, defeat, and knowledge that no one else wanted to carry. He chose the path that delayed annihilation, even if it meant becoming history's greatest villain. The Avengers saved everyone they could see. Thanos tried to save everyone they couldn't imagine. And that's the haunting truth at the center of this theory. The Infinity Saga wasn't about defeating evil. It was about choosing which future you're willing to risk. Thanos chose certainty over hope. The Avengers chose hope over foresight. And now the universe moves forward without its most paranoid guardian. As the MCU expands into multiversal chaos, secret wars, and god-level intellects, Thanos' shadow grows longer, not shorter. His absence is felt in every fracture, every rising tyrant, every cosmic threat that emerges now that the universe is loud again. And one day, when Doom finally steps onto the stage and reality itself bends to his will, we might look back and realize Thanos wasn't the end of the problem. He was the last line of defense before something far worse. If this theory changed the way you see Thanos and the Infinity Saga, make sure to like the video, share it with someone who loves Marvel theories, and subscribe for more deep dives like this.